Hello everyone, today I will tell you about the film Greedy People. Enjoy watching! Before watching, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. I'm trying to develop this channel and your support is the only thing I have. Will and his wife Paige moved to the quiet town of Providence. They are expecting a baby soon, and today is his first day on the job with the police. The man was briefed by Chief of Police Murphy. She recently lost her adopted son. Terry will help the newcomer get settled in. He has been with the police for 16 years and knows how everything works here. Will admitted that he moved here from New York to have a baby in a quiet place. The main advice Terry gave the newcomer was not to kill anyone. It is also so boring here that it is better to get a hobby. For example, Terry is learning Chinese. Terry spends all day visiting local establishments to treat himself to free coffee and donuts. It turns out that 20 years ago, Will's father robbed a bank. Meanwhile, Paige is busy arranging the children's room. Paige came to a hardware store and noticed a strange man. According to the seller, the Irishman can solve any problem. It soon became clear why Terry needed Chinese. He was sleeping with a married Chinese woman. Terry had fun like this every day while on patrol while her husband was at work. Terry promised to handle it quickly, but he spent half a day at his mistress's house. And then a call came in with the code 1115. This was something serious and they needed to act quickly. But Terry never came out. But her husband did, and he mistook the newcomer for his wife's lover. Will went to the call alone. He drove up to Virginia Chetla's mansion and pulled out a gun. The owner, as if nothing had happened, was cooking in the kitchen and listening to music. She bent down to pick up a carrot and almost got a hole in the head. Will mistakenly thought that a robbery had taken place there. The woman was so angry that she started beating the cop and even put him in a chokehold. Will passed out and fell on the table with Virginia. It turned out that a wooden fragment stuck in the back of her head, and the woman died on the spot. A disgruntled Terry arrived here, who had barely escaped from a Chinese businessman. An unpleasant surprise awaited him. How did a newbie manage to kill a man on his first day? That's the main rule, don't kill people. 1115 is not a robbery, but a sex crime in a car. Virginia constantly complained about the guy who parked next to her house. The murdered woman is the wife of the richest man in town. So Will is finished. Suddenly, Terry realized that he would also be fired, because at that time he was tumbling with his mistress. In anger, Terry kicked the basket, and a whole bunch of cash fell out of it. And this changes everything. Terry is going to take the money and arrange everything so that it looks like a robbery with murder took place here. Terry convinced his partner that it was better to take the money than to watch his son grow up from prison. The cops made a mess and collected the money in a bag. Terry set his watch to 3:25 p.m. and broke it. After drinking some coffee, they were about to leave. But then Will remembered that there was a bicycle next to the house, and now it was gone. To provide himself with an alibi, Terry stopped the woman for speeding. Babette started arguing with him. After all, Terry would have simply turned a blind eye to this before. But today he needed a witness who would see him at work at 3:25 p.m. After some time, they received a call to the Chetlov house. The husband was already giving a statement to Captain Murphy, and he was clearly pretending to be upset about what had happened. The man remembered the massage therapist who came to his wife every day. At the same time, Wallace said that nothing was missing from the house. The partners began to hint to the boss that Virginia was killed by her husband. In the evening after work, the conspirators hid $1 million in Terry's container. Will demanded that he tell him the code to the lock. They would split the money when everything died down. Terry ordered Will to keep his mouth shut, but as soon as he returned home, he immediately told his wife about what happened today. He told his wife about the money too. Alarmed, Paige wanted to meet Terry to understand whether he was dangerous or not. We see that same massage therapist. He was in the house when the cops were cleaning up the crime scene, and he heard where Terry was going to throw $1 million. The massage therapist escaped through the window and rode away on his bike. Will recognized this bike. He and his partner came to interrogate the massage therapist. Keith lives with his mother, and she gave away her son completely. The massage therapist sometimes danced a striptease for Miss Chetla. Mommy gave Keith up again. There was more to it than just dancing. In general, Keith tells his mother everything, even such intimate details. Will invited his friend to dinner. The mother knows about the stolen money and is going to pocket it. We see Wallace Chettle find his dead wife's body and not be upset about it at all. Everyone expresses their condolences to the businessman, including his secretary. But this is only for show. The lovers had been planning to finish off Mrs. Chettle for a long time. Wallace paid the Colombian $1 million for this. Just then, the Colombian called and offered to meet. That day, a professional killer broke into Chettle's home and found the dead mistress of the house on the floor. The money for the order was supposed to be in the basket, but someone had already emptied it. The Colombian was waiting for Wallace in his garage. He was wondering where his money was. The businessman decided that the killer was blackmailing him. The Colombian thought that Wallace had hired someone else for the job, like an Irishman. Anyway, the Colombian was still demanding that he be paid $1 million, since he had spent the whole day preparing. The businessman had only 2 days to get the money. Will asked his wife not to let Terry know that she knew anything. The friendly man met his partner's dog and wife. Terry was in a great mood until Paige started asking him strange questions. Terry understood everything at that very second. She knew about the money. Then the policeman told him how he had beaten the man who had bullied him as a child half to death with a baton. Will hadn't even noticed what had just happened between his wife and the guest. To be more convincing, Terry ran over their dog, pretending that it had happened by accident. That night, Patch demanded that he tell her the combination to the lock. What if something happens to her husband and they have a child? Terry apologized all day for what happened to the dog. Will never realized it was a warning. Their boss called them both in and told them that Wallace Setlow was on the verge of bankruptcy, and his wife had an expensive insurance policy, so now he would receive a fortune. And now they had a motive. Matches from a motel were found at the crime scene. Wallace rented a room there at night, so the officers needed to find out what he was doing there. So the cops learned that the man was meeting his secretary at the hotel. The cops decided to blame everything on Wallace. A murder of passion. However, Murphy rejected this version. The surveillance cameras showed that the deceased's husband was at work at the time of the murder. Captain Murphy regularly visits her son's grave. She received a call from the lab that her subordinate's DNA had been found all over the murdered woman's house. Will saw Keith, the massage therapist, come out of the store with a huge bolt cutter. One day, Terry knocked on Paige's car. He reminded her about the dog he had hit and also threatened her and her unborn son. Paige immediately went to the construction site and ripped off the hitman's number. She and the Irishman met in a cafe. He charges much less than the Colombian, but at the same time acts carelessly, at least according to the competitor. The killer asked for $50,000 to kill Terry. Paige immediately found and opened the container, but she took not $50,000 from there, but the entire $1 million at once. The woman counted out the required amount and threw it into the Irishman's mailbox. Will was tormented by his conscience, but his wife reassured him. Everything will be fine because Terry committed the crime. Wallace doesn't want to die, but he'll have to sell everything to pay off the Colombian. His mistress asked him to think about who could have stolen his money. And then Wallace remembered the masseur. He was the one who killed his wife and took the money. He thought about Keith and Will. That mama's boy is definitely going to steal their money. Terry returned home in a good mood. There, a hired killer was already waiting for him and threw a belt around the policeman's neck. But he really does act dirty. A fight broke out between them. He stuck a knife into Terry and then began to strangle the victim. But then Terry's mistress stabbed him with a harpoon. While the Irishman was thinking about how to get the harpoon out of himself, the cop wrapped a chain around his leg and threw the anchor into the river. At the same time, Will drove up to the massage therapist's house. Keith was just throwing bolt cutters and things into the car to get out of town later. Wallace drove up there too. He left a gun with Keith, but then his mother came out of the house and shot the businessman with a shotgun. The secretary jumped out of the car and killed Keith and his mother. Will was shocked by what he saw and drove home. The Colombian also watched these events. A beaten Terry was waiting for Will at the door. He left a gun with his partner and ordered him to get into the car. Naive Will does not understand why his friend was so angry with him. Terry suspects that Will stole the money. They are going to the container right now. Murphy found out that Terry took the car after hours and went after him. The man ordered Will to open the container. He was surprised when he saw that the money really wasn't there, and he didn't know where it was. Terry knew that his partner had told his wife everything and that dinner had been a test. Apparently, the hint of the dog wasn't enough. Terry demanded that Will call his wife and put her on speakerphone. Finally, Paige confessed that she had taken the money and hidden it. But she did even worse when she mentioned that Terry had killed Virginia. Terry had finally lost faith in the man he considered a friend and shot him in the head. Murphy found the body of the murdered Will and immediately told Paige. She assumed that Terry had probably eliminated the witness who knew that he had killed Virginia. He wanted to kill her too. Murphy put Terry on the wanted list. He had already found Paige. The woman hit the cop with the door. He responded by shooting at her car with a pistol. Paige jumped out of it and ran away. Terry demands his money back. This visiting couple is selfish and liars. It's all their own fault. Terry wanted to help Will, and they screwed him. That's the last thing the cop managed to say before Captain Murphy shot him. That same night, Paige gave birth. The Colombian came to visit her. But when Paige woke up, she saw Murphy in front of her. A lot of people died yesterday, and the woman is interested in why Terry was chasing her. However, Paige lied again that she didn't know anything. She managed to hide the money in a drawer. Paige lied for the last time in her life. As soon as Murphy left the room, she tried to run away with the money, but it was too late. The Colombian showed up and finished her off. The satisfied killer went into the elevator with the money and ran into the secretary there. She had a gun with her, and the Colombian pulled out a knife. When the elevator doors opened, there were 2 corpses lying on the floor and a pile of money. The newborn baby was not left without a mother. He was adopted by Captain Murphy. This is where the film ends.